So, there are a lot of people that I haven't met here, and a lot that I have met. Those I have met, it's good to see you. I'm really glad you're here. And for those that I haven't met, nice to meet you. I'm Velda, and I like WordPress. My website is legendofvelda.com. And my Twitter is @Swinovia. Slides are up at legendofvelda.com, and I know sometimes in these things it's easier to just like actually dive in and start working on it. I won't be offended if you start doing that. So there's information right there in the codex for writing your plugin, or you can also watch the videos at WordPress TV, but don't actually watch the videos here because it would be loud and noise. So I'm actually, I'm really shy, so don't ask me why I speak to these kind of things. I think it's mostly because I love open source. So overcome my shyness to be a part of the community, right? This is some of the stuff that I've been into. Okay, really quick, my tech background. I'm kind of more of an artistic person, truth be told. But I was raised by geeky people. So, so I had a computer in my home from like the time I was 3, and watched my brothers bang around and do some programming and learn some of it, and kind of lost my way for a while regarding programming things. I told you I got beat up a lot as a kid, and then I was like, maybe if I don't leave me alone, and that worked for a while until I graduated from high school. I'm like, those people aren't in my life anymore, and I don't know how to do the stuff that I love. This sucks. So I kind of started to come back into it. I got a job at TechServe. Did anyone else ever work at TechServe back in the day? Oh my gosh, technical support company. We call ourselves tech servants. So.
I was with PrimeNet. Did you know that? Global Crossing, Global Center, we changed names about like 10 times.
I did not know them. TechServe was fun. I met a lot of really great people. Kind of a horrible work environment in some ways, but there were tons of really amazing people there, and that's kind of how I got started into open source. So back in 2003, I did the Software for Starving Students thing, and I have been involved in open source ever since then. I love it. I love how it changes the world. I did hosting and banners for the hosting company for several years. I worked at home doing that, so I kind of have a little bit of the sysadmin stuff going on. I've done different, like say, open source projects. I worked at BloodTech for a while. They randomly called and wanted to hire me. I'm like, okay, I will work for you and buddy stuff. So that was really fun. So I've kind of done a really random mix of tech and marketing and all kinds of stuff. But right now, I'm actually back into customer support, right where I started again, because I actually really love it. And the screen is not responding. There we go. I work for WordPress.com. So I went to my first WordCamp in Utah in 2008. At that time, that's when I was admin, and people were running all of our servers. And I kind of knew what it was, but I was like, oh, I'll go check it out. And I totally fell in love with the community. They're amazing. So, WordPress.com is also run by Automatic, and we are hiring. We're hiring all kinds of people. Please mute your cell phones. Okay. we're hiring all kinds of people. So if you want to check that out, automatic.com/jobs, they take good care of us. It's really easy home. So they run WordPress.com and do a whole bunch of other things. So
Got my attention.
yeah, check it out. So you guys, who has heard of WordPress.com and WordPress.org? Do you guys know the difference between them, or is it a little bit fuzzy?
Yeah.
So I've seen some nods and some no's. WordPress.org is the software, right? WordPress.com is a software service. So it's basically like if you were to take the blueprints and build a building with it and say, now you can rent out of it, okay? So my job at WordPress.com is actually to take people whose sites are kind of growing too big for the service. I mean, not that they ever grow too big for the service. We can scale them up. They're like, I want to go do my own thing. I want to go off on my own, and I want someone else to move my site for me because it's too big and I don't have time to mess with it. So my job is to migrate sites and then help them get oriented with running their own open source installation. So I kind of get to bridge the gap there. Okay, so why WordPress? Who here uses WordPress a lot already? Got a fair number of people. Who here is like, why would I use WordPress? I don't. We're seeing value in it. Okay, so this was initially actually given at the PHP talk, but I think this is a really good analogy, so I left it in here. I was having a conversation on Facebook about, hey, you should come to this PHP conference. And my now brother-in-law was like, PHP? Wasn't that used to make someone's personal homepage or whatever? And it was. That's what PHP initially stood for. Yeah, it did initially. It was personal homepage. But now you can do all kinds of stuff with PHP. And but he was basically saying how, I tried to explain to him that PHP is a tool. I was brought back to this quote from Rasmus Lerdorf, who actually started PHP. He says PHP is a web hammer, right? It's widely used, anyone can use it, and best practices keep you from getting hurt, right? Just because it's hammer doesn't mean it's not useful, right? With WordPress, a lot of people are like, oh, that's just used for people's personal home pages, but you can actually use it for a ton of stuff. But yeah, so my brother-in-law was saying how it's a terrible tool, and I'm like, okay, well, he's like, it's like using a hammer when you should be using a tile saw, and I'm like, okay, but at the same time, you wouldn't use a tile saw instead of hammer, right? I'm sorry if that analogy didn't quite flow easily. I'm not seeing my notes, but yeah, he was saying that, he's like, using PHP is like using a hammer when you need to be using a tile saw, and I'm like, well, refusing to use it is like using a tile saw when you should be using a hammer, which is worse. Anyway, WordPress is kind of the same way. It has a lot of use cases, and it's actually extremely useful. Here are some things that you can love about WordPress. Number one, or it says number 10 because we're going backwards, but this is the biggest thing for me. This is a picture I took at a conference for WordPress. On our left, we have the looking for work. On our right, we have the hiring board. By the end of the conference, both boards were filled, but there was a line going right over here for people who were looking for work, and the rest was filled with job opportunities. So it's very much in demand. PS, right? We are still hiring. Over 20% of the top 10 million sites on the web use WordPress at this point. It's out there, okay? And that's why, because anyone can use it, including just about anyone, which does pose a problem sometimes because you're like, well, if you can use it, then, But
like, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
No, it's okay. You can go ahead.
Isn't it CNN that uses it too? One of the news ones.
CNN uses it. New York Times uses it. A lot of major networks actually host with us the WordPress stuff. So, but yeah, people say, well, anyone can use it. That's a problem, but it actually comes in handy because who develops websites for customers? Who here has had that call where they're like, we forgot and we misspelled something on this page and we need you to go in and update it for us. Oh, we changed our mind again.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, actually say this instead, and you're like, right?
Leave me alone.
So, with WordPress, literally anyone can use it.
You have those with WordPress, though.
Yeah, well, you can get those with WordPress, but with WordPress, if you can send it to email,
Right.
you can post, right?
Right.
I mean, even if you don't want to use the admin,
go for it.
yeah, I mean, you can do it. It's
Right.
It's easy to show them how to do that. Super easy updates. Who knows WordPress current version? It will update itself for you, unless you disable that. Very handy. The plugins and things don't update by themselves, just so you know. You need to still stay on top of those. The documentation, you've seen the codecs. There's a ton of info out there. Tons and tons of info, and they're constantly working on it. They're actually moving it to even something less coded, I guess you could say, than the codecs. Has anyone ever been to a WordPress meetup or a WordCamp? Yay, WordCamp attenders! It's fun, right?
Yeah.
It's a really great community. It's like this. It's not quite as big here in Utah, but it's a really fun meetup, you get to know a lot of people and you get really well networked, so you get all the stuff taken care of. You can see that there are meetup groups all over the world. If you ever move to Africa or East Russia, we should start a group.
There's a little island over there, even something like that.
Yeah,
Hawaii.
it's Hawaii.
Oh, that's Hawaii, right?
Yeah, it's way over there.
You're right. Never gonna get a job.
So in softer years, WordPress is ancient, right? If you think about all the tech companies that come and go, we've been around a long time. It's going to be around a long time because it's well supported. We have custom post types, which might not make sense if you haven't been doing them. But people who think that WordPress is just for blogs, you can write posts, but you can also use that same structure, rearrange the pieces that go into it, and suddenly WordPress can hold address information, or it can, be a store. All these different pieces can go into WordPress. So custom post types, which are relatively new, weren't there when I started, have actually made that a whole lot easier. So it has all the typical features that you look for, all the things. Incidentally, these are all the things that your client will ask for, even if they don't ask for them right up front. So a lot of times people will get a project and will be like, oh yeah, we can code that in like 3 days. But then they come back and they're like, oh, but we need this too. Oh, and this. Oh, and this. And then you get this total scope creep thing going on. With WordPress, the features are already there. And you're like, all right, everything's taken care of. So it's just whether they're adding on to that, which is what you want to do, right? You only have to worry about your own code. And that's if you do it right. That's how you do it. Okay, so there are several different ways you can make WordPress work for you. We have themes and plugins, our basic options out there. You guys, who's written a theme? Or child theme who's written a plugin? A few people have written plugins, a few people have written themes. I've done both. Oh, that's out of order still. I'm sorry. That was not supposed to be there. So we had done this, but I learned that that's actually a bad idea. You should do the child themes list. So, just showing you some different options of things that you can do with themes. This one is a restaurant theme. You can actually put the same types of code in a theme that you can put in a plugin. And so the real trick just becomes when would you put it in a theme and when would you put it in a plugin, right? This restaurant theme that we have for some sites on WordPress.com is a good case for putting your custom code in the theme itself. Because you can see it has a menu built into it, and because it has a menu, you need custom post types for the types of foods and things like that. And so the question is always, do you want to write a theme for it? Do you want to write a plugin for it? In this case, because the entire site is built around the menu, and the entire layout's built around that, you aren't going to just be able to port that into any theme. Does that make sense? Sorry if I'm, like I say, not seeing my notes because I'm going back to this, but if you want a feature that's going to stay on the site no matter what you do to the theme, then that's when you would use a plugin, right? So like if you have a contact form, like this one on my old site, I don't change the theme too often, but when I do change it, I don't want my contact form to disappear, right? So that would be a case where you'd want to write a plugin to be able to do it. You don't need to write a plugin for a contact form, it's not a bit, but you can use a plugin for a contact form. So really quick on themes. From the simplest things you can do to the most complex. You can do theme customizations, which most themes actually have a ton of stuff built into them. If you just kind of dig into it a little bit, you can rearrange the layout and replace headers and change colors and do all kinds of stuff without even knowing the liquid code. Your clients can do that. There's an edit CSS feature. If you actually edit the theme CSS, has anyone ever done that? Like straight up editing your theme CSS? And then one day you see a little update button and you're like, yay, an update, and you click it and your CSS is gone and you're like, I hate you, right? So there's a way around this, okay? There is an edit CSS. I'm sure there are all kinds of plugins, but there's the Jetpack plugin that WordPress.com offers edit CSS. So Jetpack is a plugin that actually offers some of the same features that WordPress.com does. So this one lets you edit the CSS independent of the theme updates. So if your theme gets updated, your CSS is left alone and everything's good. So that actually takes care of most things. If you know CSS well, you can do most of the look and feel stuff in that without ever having to edit the PHP. But if you want some extra features, like say you wanted the menu or you wanted to add some extra stuff that is specific to that theme, you can do a child theme. And then there's also starting themes and writing from scratch. This is just kind of what the built-in theme customization looks like. This is from my old site. We have just some really basic stuff you can go in and change. That's helpful, again, if you're new or if you have someone who is taking care of the site for you. There's widgets. You guys have seen those that you can add in. You guys are pretty familiar with it enough to know what the widgets are, right? That will let you do all kinds of stuff. You can write plugins to add widgets. And then there's also the custom menus. Are you familiar with those? Lets you make your own little drop-down menu for different locations in your theme. The edit CSS with Jetpack, basically, and that's where I didn't modify it. This is what the edit CSS screen looks like. That comes in there, actually does some syntax highlighting, and it keeps revisions for you. Which comes in. Oh, and one more really cool thing with this: who uses Chrome Inspect Element to like edit your CSS and then just copy it, or Firefox or Firebug or whatever? Yeah. With those, if you just straight up copy and paste that code into there, if you were to copy and paste it into a text editor, it would have all kinds of weird cruft that you need to take out. This takes it out automatically for you. So just pop it in there, you're done. It's really handy. Child themes. Okay, so this is actually probably the most useful thing for most of your needs, unless you're going to be with a client who changes themes all the time, right? This is if you need to modify theme parts or add to the features. So there's all kinds of information that that's, oh, that's really awesome number in Google. Thank you. I didn't notice that. But the first thing you do is install your parent theme. Like a lot of times people will be like, I can't get this child theme to work. Well, the parent theme isn't there. So you install the parent theme and then it basically extends the theme. You can do what you want with it. You create a folder and then you add style CSS with this header. This is one that I had to work on. So you've got your theme name, your description, and then you say the template, right? That's the parent theme right there. And then you import the style if you want to, or don't if you don't want to.
So template is just the name of the parent theme, the folder name.
Right, right. So the folder name is the template name right there, or it's like the theme select.
Is that the name that you find in the parent theme style thing? Is that where that name?
Yeah, or like usually, he's right. It usually is actually just the folder.
The folder.
Right.
Okay.
Where the parent theme exists.
Okay.
So it's a theme slug, or the short name for it. But in this case, there's I have in my my WP content themes directory. I have a folder with clean home WP con, right? And then I had a folder called clean-page, right? So I was building a theme that had some extra page functionality built into it, some table of contents that I needed. But yeah, you just reference the parent theme right there. If you want to import the style, you can. If you don't, it doesn't matter. All you need is a style sheet to make the child theme, okay? Of course, you can add more to it, right? This is just a little better look at it so you can see it clearly. Does that make sense? So from there, you can add new styles. You can add new page templates. Like a lot of times, I know at one point, even with this conference, I used to be on the core team for it. And they were like, why are we using WordPress? I need a page that shows a wide page and WordPress won't do that. I'm like, okay. And so I showed them how to very quickly make a new page template, take out the sidebar in the page template, call it something else, and boom, now I've got a different option, no sidebar. Ta-da, or full width or whatever, So you can just add new page templates to your theme. Sorry to resize that, it's being weird for me. Adding your new post type sets where you can go and head menus or whatever you need. The one thing that you need to know is that if you wanted to change like home PHP, you couldn't just go and make a new home PHP file and just put in the code that you want to add to it. It replaces home PHP, but your style sheet, assuming you import, it would add to it. Your page templates would be added to the existing page templates from the parent thing. Your post types would be added to the existing stuff. So if you're doing a file with the same file name, it would replace it with the exception of functions PHP, because that, again, gets added to the existing functions. Does that make sense? You following? That's the part that people kind of get stuck on a little bit, but once you know, it's pretty good. I'm sorry this is cutting off. It was supposed to be widescreen, and I don't know why it's imported or exported that way.
It's WordPress's fault.
I did it in Google.
Okay.
So,
What was that last line? Feel free to what?
Feel free to safely update the parent thing once you have a child thing, basically. Because a lot of times people, like if you Google how to add, this is what people do. They get their new WordPress installation and they're like, oh, how do I add a new widget area? And then they're like, oh, okay, so I need to add this to functions, and I need to add this to my page, boom, it's done. And then they do the same thing, like with editing the CSS, they go and update the theme and all their stuff is lost. Because basically when you update your theme, it gets rid of the folder and starts with a fresh. So that's why you would use child theme, because then your widget area that you registered in functions and the place where you called it your theme would stay put. Even if you only have those two files in your entire child theme, that and your style CSS, even if that doesn't have anything in it but the bones that I showed you, then you'll have the functionality that you want in your good with. So, and you can update your current theme. So, custom page template. This is what that looks like. So, I just wrote, like if you just copy your page to, this is important, you write page dash and then whatever slide you want for that page template. So page dash hello. Then you'll add this, right? Just right at the top. You put in your template name, because that's what's going to show up on your list of page templates. And then add the stuff that you want to add to it, right? So this is your template header right here. And this is, I just wanted to echo hello world, because you can use whatever page you want. Of course, it's better to use the WordPress stuff so that pieces that we have to rewrite everything, but famous parent themes you guys have probably heard of. Genesis and Thesis and Make ToolBox. ToolBox is the little basic theme that we used on WordPress for a long time. I used to build all my client sites on ToolBox child themes. Now there's another option. There's a starter theme. Have you guys heard of these? Seeing some nodding? Okay, so starter themes are basically not like a child theme because you will be in charge of your updates and things like that. But, like with underscores, which is one of the more notable ones, they just call it the 1,000-hour head start, right? So all the stuff that you might want to do is already built into it, and then you just go and add more from there. If you wanted to create a new underscores thing, you basically go to the website, which is like a slide. It's underscores. Let me see if I can find it here real quick, because I feel silly that that's not showing. Sorry.
Underscores about me.
Yeah, underscores me. Okay. So if you go here, and you're going to make a new theme, this is what it actually looks like. Save file. And
And those are all free themes, not?
Yeah, this is a free theme. The Genesis, is Genesis a free theme to
I
start
think
with?
they have a paid version, but they also have a free light version.
Mhm.
And Bones is absolutely free.
Yeah, so
In fact, Bones is a very interesting license.
what's Bones' interesting license?
The do whatever the F you want license.
There you go.
They literally say, do whatever the F you want. We don't care if you pay us.
Well, there you go.
There you go. This is what underscores looks like. Just so it's
It's on styles. No, but they're pretty good.
you can see it's got your basic stuff. You only need like an index file and a style CSS to make your own thing, but this includes some of the other things that you might want, right?
Do they do a lot of overwriting?
Hmm?
Do they do a lot of overwriting, like removing WordPress headers stuff or underscores?
Like overriding,
Like Bones theme, I know they adjust what WordPress injects into your header.
oh, do they?
Yeah, they do a lot of things like that, so they have a lot of custom functionality, and there's a lot to it. And I'm kind of curious if underscores does the same.
Well, underscores is written by people who work with WordPress, so it's probably going to use a lot of the basic WordPress stuff so that it's well supported within, you know. I do know that with some of the child theme, there's so many things that are totally different than basic. This is just basic stuff.
So if I'm understanding correctly, child themes are an extension of an already fully developed thing.
Right.
And this, I'm sorry, what were we calling the?
These ones are starter
And
themes.
starter themes are just kind of it's got some pre-programmed stuff in it that you'll probably need.
It's like a
but
cake mix.
Yeah.
It's like a cake mix.
Cake
You don't eat straight up cake mix.
Right,
That would
right.
be weird.
If you used it as a theme, it'd be really ugly and feel better. So it's really so that you've got something to start with.
But yeah, this is like just something to start with. It has all the basic ingredients that you'll need, but you still have to add stuff to it, and you still need to cook it.
And what were you saying about updates?
About updates
You
with
said
this, you would be like,
You're
since it's your own theme, you aren't going to automatically receive, oh, we decided to add this new feature that underscores. No. I mean, it's your theme now, you take care of it. So, yeah.
If you wanted to write your own theme, what would be the best one to go off of with this sort of?
Well, so I think that's a totally subjective question, but I would just use underscores personally. I don't often need to write my own theme though. Honestly, there are a lot of themes out there that are already pretty well put together, and so if everything's in place and all I need to add is this and this and this, I mean, it's like using the cake mix analogy. It's like going to the store and buying the April food cake and adding strawberries to the top of it. You know what I'm saying?
And then bringing it to the party and saying, I made it.
Yeah, put it on your own little plate, or like you go get the muffins and then just kind of turn it out.
Yes, exactly.
You're like, stick it in a basket with a napkin. Ta-da! Look what I did. Right. So, but yeah, see if I can find that out. So yeah, that's kind of what underscores works with. Or if you are that person, you can go straight from scratch because all you need is the style, CSS, and the index. And there is tons of information on the codex on how to get started. And I would recommend if you're going to do that route, go ahead and get a really simple theme that looks like what you would want and dissect it, look at it and see how they did things, and then look at the codex and see how you want to do other things and go from there. So, did I have hands? I saw movements, but then they went back down. So, you never know, right? Plugins are another option. Again, I would recommend a plugin in any case where it's going to need to port from one thing to another or from one site to another. Just write a plugin, okay? It doesn't really matter what layout it fits into. Just do it as a plugin, okay? There's whole stuff right here on writing plugins. Sorry. Say I'm not. Yeah, there's here. I've never actually had to write a plugin, okay? I I've only ever had to write functions in a theme. That is because it needed to go with that theme. And there are a multitude of plugins available. I mean, there are so many plugins out there. The key is finding one that works well, because the plugin repository is kind of the wild, wild west. So you have to look at what you're getting.
Look at the, again, how many times, when it was last updated, how many updates?
There you go. See, was it Brian's talk at one of the work
Yeah, I
camps?
gave a talk at one camp about this.
Yeah, he gave a talk at WordCamp about this, where basically you look at, like when you go pull up a plugin, we should just do it here because I don't have a screenshot of that, and I should. But we're on the WordPress.org site, and let's say we want a plugin for...
Captcha.
Huh?
Captchas.
How about, oh, I thought you said couches, I was talking about.
Okay. So, yeah, everyone needs a couch, right? So...
Code word.
Right, so here's really quick, we'll just kind of look at this. It has a fair number of downloads. It was updated recently. This is one other thing. You can view the support form and see what kinds of questions people are asking. They're all asking the same question, so you choose a different one, you know? But you can write your own plugins too. So, plugins in a nutshell. The first thing you need is filters. Filters replace the content. So if you wanted to, for example, and there's already a plugin that does this, guys, but if you want a plugin that takes a YouTube URL and automatically generates the embed code. In fact, I think WordPress now does that automatically anyway. But you would do that with a filter. So you basically say, okay, find this content and replace it with this, right? Actions actually let you add your own function, and hooks tell you where you can add it, okay? This is your Bible for that. If you go to the plugin API action reference, you can kind of see, just open it up so you can see what, like these are all the actions that are run in WordPress. And you can add your functions to them, right? So, just trying to think of anything that you want to do. Like if you go look at the basic Hello Dolly, you know, it goes and says, okay, so where's the admin head? Well, when you get to the admin head, do this function. And this function is find a line from the song Hello Dolly, which we printed out here line by line, and just put one of them on the screen. And then throw in the CSS and we're done, right? Super basic plugin to look at to see how to do it, right? Someone was saying, oh, but I heard you can't add your own tables. WordPress, you can't add your own database tables. You have to stay in the same schema. I'm like, I don't know. You can add your own tables if you want to. You can't add your own tables and have it be a WordPress.com plugin, but you can add your own tables, right? And to clarify, on WordPress.com, you don't get to bring your own plugins into it. At WordPress.com, we'll sometimes say, this is a really popular plugin, we'll add it to our multi-user installation. So that's that. Here's a filter example. You can just kind of see this little callback function that replaces. It just does stuff to make it into a URL. This, again, we don't really need to do anymore because WordPress takes care of it for you. And here's a Twitter timeline plugin that is built into Jetpack that basically just adds it into the widget area for you. So this is the main reason I haven't written plugins. Like I was saying, there are a ton of them out there, and I am not one to make things from scratch if I don't have to, because y'all may have heard this, that I now have 6 children. I'm just saying. You know, I'm like, for me, I'm lazy. I'm gonna only do what I have to do, and plus then I don't have to sit there and maintain it. You know, Jetpack is one option you guys have probably heard of. Because I mentioned it earlier, but you may have heard of it before. Like I said, it's a plugin that comes to kind of give people many of the same features that they had on WordPress.com on their own sites. So now they have forms, and they can automatically publish out to Twitter, and they have stats, and they have comments that can let people comment from Twitter and Facebook and things like that. All these things are just kind of built in. One advantage to using one of these, basically like a multi-tool plugin, it's like your little Swiss Army knife. So when you get a site that has like 15 bazillion different plugins in it, sometimes they fight little kind of crash heads, and that can be a pain to troubleshoot. But you know, if you ever run into that, you just go and deactivate a plugin at a time, and then or go look at your logs first and then deactivate a plugin at a time. Security and best practices with WordPress. Actually, I should have number one, use backups. Always use backups. But we've talked about a lot of these things. Validating your input and escaping your output, just in case someone's trying to. I mean, that's. If you're a developer, you know to do that, right? And there's stuff built into WordPress to do that for you. You can, don't use different table prefixes. WordPress automatically wants to put WP underscore for your tables in your database when you set it up. If you just use something else, I know it's security through obscurity, but it's just one little thing you can do that takes 2 seconds.
The most effective mind build is filled with minds. So a lot of little things can go a long way.
Yep.
Can you change the prefix after an install, or does it have to be a fresh install to change the prefix?
I would do it in a fresh install. Because you have to go through and change all your database tables and change everything.
So there's nothing in there that would.
Well, you can go and change the settings and then change all your database tables, but it would be. So I would just do it in fresh install. So this is a big one right here, downloading only from repeatable sources. That's again, Brian mentioned it in his talk at WordCamp.
By the way, there's like slides on that on speakerdeck.com/Tara, and I think there's even a recording of it on YouTube, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
So
he did a whole talk on this.
you search for finding perfect WordPress plugins and themes. They did all the-
There you go. Did you guys hear that? So I will repeat it into the microphone so that everybody can hear it. Brian said if you go to slidedeck.com
Yeah.
/Tara,
Yep.
and you can find his slides about
Finding reputable.
finding
plugins.
reputable things. Because basically people will go, they get the brand new WordPress installation, they're like, I'm going to Google free themes. People will seriously go take a free theme, inject some crap into it, and upload it to a site and say, look, you can get your free theme here, and then optimize it for that. So
TIERRA.
you don't want to do that. Sometimes people are like, oh, WordPress is so insecure, but I mean, we've run a lot of sites on it. But yeah,
TIERRA.
if you're using some best practices, you're going to be just fine. Also, if you look at hardening WordPress and the codex, there's a lot of good information in there too. Sometimes people go and lock down all the permissions on files and things like that. They can kind of limit update functionality and things like that. And if your update functionality is limited, it can cause other issues. But there's a ton of ideas out there for how to harden it. Basically, as long as you're taking good care of your installation though, and keeping backups just in case. So this is a big thing. Okay, next is seriously don't hardcore. Once again, people will go Google, how do I do da-da-da-da-da? And just start editing the WordPress core files, and you can make it do this, and it'll be so much easier than writing a plugin. Don't do that, because then what you end up with is this installation of WordPress that you cannot update, because now all your custom code is injected throughout it, and you're going to have to go do diffs and crazy stuff like that to put it back together again. Don't do that. Some of the resources I relied on, like number one, actually is talks that I've heard from other people. There's a lot of good ideas out there. If you go to WordPress TV, there's a ton more info than this. This is super high level, kind of why you use WordPress and how to basically get started with it. A lot of times this is just the nudge people need. Sorry, that's really easy. I do love going to WordPress.org. That was not my intention just now. WPSLC.com. Anybody ever been there? So we have a WordPress users group that meets on the last Wednesday night of every month up in Draper. One of the best things about the group is when they get together, and I don't get to go too often because again, 6 kids. Okay, But when we go, like, there's the talk that people give, but then there's this whole session where people just kind of collaborate and be like, okay, well, here's the problem I'm having. I'm brand new and I'm trying to do this. And this other person's like, well, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to write this plugin. I keep running into this problem, and just help each other out. So this is an awesome resource. And you get to know people in the community and meet people face to face, which I think is awesome. And then if you're not in Utah, you can find your own meetup there or make one. And then creative coverage images from the hammer and the saw and stuff earlier. This is a book that I also read and have lots of good information. It goes into detail. Funpoet.com, which I am supporting, has a lot of really great information for WordPress developers. Getting started and getting deep. And then, of course, there's always the usual stuff, right? Finding the resources for this. Now, we have non-traditional Q&A. In this Q&A, you can ask the question, but anybody can answer it, because here's the thing, I always feel when I speak at things like this, like, most of the room is probably smarter than me, and if everybody shares what they know, then we'll all be better for it than we would be if I just said what I know. So, your questions? Yes.
Have you ever used the advanced custom fields plugin?
Have I ever used the advanced custom fields plugin? No, I have used custom fields, and I should mention those in the talk. Custom fields, huh?
That's the,
Yeah. What's the advanced custom fields plugin?
it's the best plugin ever.
Did you write it?
No.
What's
This guy in Australia,
Uh-huh.
but it's like super well documented, and basically it turns WordPress into like whatever you want it to be.
So it lets you add.
It lets you add custom fields to any part of WordPress. Like you can tell
Like the
like
custom post
specific
types.
types of fields.
So yeah, those
So,
things
yeah,
are
I want
like
that.
WordPress types,
You
but
can always do
No,
that.
but you don't have to write any
It's on
code
top
to
of
do it.
custom
oh, on
post
top
types.
of custom post types.
So you
So
just
there's
make a new
custom
post
fields
type,
in
and then it
WordPress
creates
too,
the
as well as
meta fields that
custom.
use post meta in the tables.
So just repeating that advanced
Advanced
custom
custom
fields
fields.
But isn't
sits on
there-
top of custom post types. and
It's a
lets
pretty
you add.
popular plugin.
Yeah.
But there's already built-in functionality for custom field types as well.
Yeah,
as
but you
field
have
types,
to
but
you have to
You
do
have to put
that.
one thing in function. Or I guess you have to write code around it, I guess.
Yeah, this gives you actual UI in the WP
Okay,
admin.
so you have to
Yeah,
do it.
it integrates
Yeah.
like seamlessly with WordPress.
So instead
So
of,
it doesn't create like a menu item,
uh-huh.
although it does have an option to, you can add options, like global options. So
So-
you have like social media links, and you don't want to use a social media plugin because it's like way too heavy, then you can just add options in that you just paste in the link, and you can have your own icons that just has the icon in the link. Or you can tell, like, you create a custom field with any, it has a ton of different types, and you tell it, oh, well, I want it to only show up on a post that has the template of it, that has this template, or to show up in a specific category, or you can tell it to go wherever you want.
I haven't used it because I haven't done client sites for a couple of years now, since I started working on Automatic. I don't do client sites anymore. But that's a good thing to know.
No, they're working on a new update, so hopefully soon.
I think it's usually good if you have a custom post type of like products or something on your site, if you want to attach prices to it or just other metadata that you would throw a post.
So like if you can already do that with custom post types, but if you
You
wanted to
can,
add
but you have to
like,
like write it into your own little plugin.
so like let's say I was selling blenders. Which I may or may not have before. And I've got different blender options with different jar options and different color options. So this advanced
Yep.
custom post types, but like if I have a regular store, then I would have to make a different option. Like I could have one blender but different colors, but then I'd have to make another blender with a different jar and different colors, and it just kind of gets complicated. This would help
But what's,
overcome that.
but what does it do that the built-in functionality is already there? for custom
And
websites.
one of the biggest thing that I think plugin developers get out of it is that rather than, like, you can add in all these custom post meta fields, but then you end up having to add in new hooks into the post editor window on the WP admin side to
Okay.
add in these new form fields for all these new types of data for like dollar amounts or numbers or choices or set of choices.
So it's just making it way easier to do a custom website.
It outputs all those form fields automatically
So-
for you and restricts the user. to,
I'm
like,
just
choice
repeating
boxes.
so that the microphone can hear, but it's basically, instead of just creating the custom post type for you, it does that and it builds the form in the post page where you're creating a new post so that you can easily add the options.
Yeah, it's fun. Go install,
Worth
play
checking
with
out,
it.
right?
It's,
Does anyone else have a great plugin they want to recommend or questions or anything? Not a lot? So, I think we've got enough stuff covered here. Like I said, it's kind of a high level look at what we can do, different things that are out there. Here are some resources again. Oh yeah, Brian's got
let's
something.
say I create a new theme and I want to sell that to a new client here. Do I need to release that under the GPL?
You have a new theme that you're going to sell to a client.
Yeah.
Do you have to release it under GPL? No. Right? You don't have to, you're not forced to release your theme under GPL just because you created it. Right? But if you start,
You're doing the work for hire.
yeah, if you're doing like the work for hire.
They own the work, there's no doing. But if you are distributing
Yes, if you are distributing your theme, if you're being like, look, I made this theme, and it is based on this other GPL theme, like I've copied and pasted someone else's code that was GPL into mine, and now I'm not going to give it away for free, that would not be okay, right? You can say, I took this theme and I made it custom for this one person, but you can't suddenly start just selling your theme, right? That's the way I've understood it. Do you guys understand it differently?
How about a plugin then?
With a plugin, so you take a GPL plugin and you go and modify it, and then you start,
Good, same rules.
and then you start distributing it, but not for free.
I guess it doesn't really matter whether or not it's free or.
Well, it does matter what the license is for the plugin that you
Because
started
it's just a
with.
rule on distribution, right?
Hmm?
It's just a rule on distribution, right? It doesn't matter whether you're charging for it or if it's free, but you're distributing it.
Yeah. If you're distributing it out, if you're just like, if you just want to modify the plugin, you're, like, if they're not paying you for the plugin, but they're paying you for your work, is the way I see it. Does that make sense?
I only thought it'd be worth bringing up just because I know, like, for plugin developers specifically, because I know you haven't written any plugins, I've written some plugins, but if you've written a plugin, most of the time, you want to submit it up to WordPress.org for others to download and
Mhm.
use. And that's pretty much, everyone finds plugins on WordPress.org. Most people don't really sell those. I guess there are
Yeah, he's saying-
premium ones.
Just so that microphone's got, he's saying if you're a plugin developer, usually you want to upload it to WordPress.org.
Right. And while you could develop a plugin and not release it under GPL, unless you are actually, I think you are actually required to if you are going to distribute it. But if you aren't distributing it, you're keeping ownership and you're just running it on your site or whatever. But if you do want to submit it up to WordPress.org, they have a specific rule that says it does absolutely have to be released under GPL.
Yeah, so if you're going to submit your plugin to WordPress.org, it does need to be GPL.
Right.
I've seen a lot of plugin authors that will do like the free version and then the premium version. That's how they run it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen people do that a lot. So, do you guys have any problems with that answer? That's the way I've understood it. I know that there's a pretty huge debate, right? About certain.
I was only asking because I remember, like he was saying, Bones is not under a GPL license, which people have a problem with. Because I think in the WordPress community, and different people take different interpretations of the GPL. And so the WordPress community, the general feel for it, I'm just going to say like the general feel for it among the community, because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not going to hand out lawyer, and I would still recommend talking to a lawyer about it. But the general community outlook is that most of the WordPress community interprets plugins and themes as derivative works of WordPress, because they call into WordPress hooks and actions, filters and functions, and they would call that a derivative work. I think Matt's mentioned that a couple of times, both on themes and plugins. And but I know there's other communities like that are not WordPress related, like Typo3, for example. If you can build plugins and themes for Typo3 as well. But as far as their community is concerned, they're also released under GPL v2, by the way. They've taken the interpretation that plugins and themes are not derivative works, but that they're calling into APIs. And so as they're calling into APIs, they're not required to be licensed under the GPL.
So just to repeat, in there, he's basically saying that some people see it as calling to an API rather than as a derivative work.
Yeah.
So if it's a derivative work, you should release it under GPL if you're distributing it. If it is a API, if you're drawing into an API, then you're that's in the type.
I think it really comes down to just following what the spirit of the community says. Because,
So get to know your community.
Yeah.
Come to WPSLC and to WordCamps and stuff like that. Get to know people.
So if you do that and release under non-GPL in Typo3, nobody's going to care. But if you do that under WordPress, people care. And you might get some flack for that.
Well, we're an open source conference, right? You know?
Well, I mean, like, there's other open source licenses. Typo3, there's plenty of plugin developers release their stuff under MIT or a more permissive license. And people they absolutely love that. But that's frowned upon, like even another open source license that's frowned upon releases plugins under a permissive license as opposed to a copyleft GPL license.
Okay. Well, cool stuff. Thanks for coming.